Reality is a simulation, and Jesus knew it, and he tried to warn us, but the church erased it. Sound crazy? Well, then ask yourself this. Have you ever wondered if everything that you see, everything you touch, could be an illusion? A hologram, a simulation, a cosmic deepfake? Well, Jesus already figured this out 2,000 years ago, and what's even wilder is that modern physics is proving him right. See, today, scientists are discovering that matter doesn't even exist, that everything is just structured information, a projection from a higher reality. But here's the crazy part. An ancient book called The Sophia of Jesus Christ revealed this secret almost 2,000 years ago, and the church was so terrified of what it said that they banned it. So if this world is an illusion, then who built it? And more importantly, how do you escape? And by the end of this video, you'll know. And once you do, you'll never see reality the same way again. The Sophia of Jesus Christ is a book that was likely written in the 1st or 2nd century CE, and the church was not happy. They tried to Control-Alt-Delete this info by banning it and persecuting anyone who had it. But luckily, it was discovered in 1945, buried near the tombs of Egypt. And in this book, Jesus appears not in the flesh, but as pure, blinding light. But who is the Sophia in the Sophia of Jesus Christ? Well, Sophia is the Greek word for wisdom. So this book is called The Wisdom of Jesus Christ. But Sophia is also a goddess of pure light, more powerful than the God of the Bible. So we'll get to that soon, but first, what exactly does this book the church feared so much actually reveal? According to this book, after the crucifixion, Jesus' followers were basically having an existential crisis. The man that they thought was going to bring about a new reality was just dead. Game over. Or so they thought, because something insane happened. According to the Sophia of Jesus Christ, Jesus returned, but not in the way that anyone was expecting, and he was about to reveal that this world is nothing like what it seems. The text says, "The Savior appeared, not in his previous form, but in the invisible spirit, and his likeness resembles a great angel of light. But his resemblance I must not describe. No mortal flesh could endure it, but only pure, perfect flesh." So this was Jesus 2.0, not as a body, but as light, a light that's so pure the average person couldn't even look at him. So why is this important? Well, he wasn't just trying to make a dramatic entrance. Jesus was showing that he basically hacked his way out of the simulation, because reality, it's not made of matter. He was like Neo, free from the Matrix, and his message to the disciples, reality is not what you were told. Now, his disciples, which were 12 men and 7 women, according to this book, gathered around a mountain called Divination and Joy, and they were confused. They had seen Jesus die, but here he was, like an angel of light. And they weren't asking him about love thy neighbor, fish and loaves, or turning the other cheek. They wanted answers. So they straight up asked him, what is the underlying reality of the universe? Now hold on for a minute, pause. Do you notice something different here? This isn't the Bible story they tell you in church. They weren't asking about simple moral lessons or parables. They wanted to know what reality itself actually is. And Jesus, he didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't tell them to just have faith or pray on it. Instead, he hit them with this. I want you to know that all men from the foundation of the world until now, while they have inquired about God, who he is and what he is like, they have not found him. The wisest among them have speculated from the ordering of the world and its movements, but their speculation has not reached the truth. So Jesus was saying that no one has figured this out. Not the greatest philosophers, not the holiest priests, not even that one friend who always thinks they've unlocked the universe after one ayahuasca trip, because they've all been looking in the wrong place. But Jesus wasn't trapped like them because he wasn't from here. He tells them, I, who came from infinite light, am here, for I know him, light, that I might speak to you about the precise nature of the truth. So Jesus is straight up saying that he came from beyond this world, beyond this simulation, this illusion, this prison of a false reality. And then he casually drops this bombshell. I want you to know that everything that exists was brought forth from a single source of infinite light, but the world itself is polluted. So did you catch that? He just said that everything that exists, everything was born from a singularity of infinite light. Do you know how crazy this is? This is a book that's almost 2,000 years old, and Jesus was literally talking about the Big Bang thousands of years before modern science even existed. But Jesus didn't stop there. The world we live in, he's saying it's not real, and that everything comes from light, but the material world is a polluted version of that something greater, purer, that's hidden from us. All right, so maybe you're thinking, okay, but this is all just a bunch of mystical mumbo-jumbo speculation, right? Well, no, it turns out that modern physics has been inching towards the exact same conclusion, except instead of calling it divine revelation, they called it quantum mechanics. Enter David Bohm, who was one of the most influential physicists of the 20th century. He took one look at reality and basically said, yeah, this is all an elaborate light show. Bohm proposed that everything we perceive as solid matter is actually born from light. Sound familiar? Bohm said, light can carry information about the entire universe. Light, by interactions of different rays, produces particles in all the diverse structures of matter. They are ripples on this vast ocean of light. This ocean of energy could be thought of as an ocean of light. Okay, think about that. The universe itself, everything you see, touch, or experience in general, it's not actually solid. It's patterns of condensed and structured light. So if it's all light, then why does it still hurt when you stub your toe? Well, Bohm described matter as frozen light. He said, all matter is a condensation of light into patterns moving back and forth at average speeds, which are less than the speed of light. In other words, everything we call physical is just light pretending to be solid, light that's been slowed down, and this aligns perfectly with what the Gnostic gospel of Jesus was saying thousands of years ago. When Jesus appeared not as a flesh and blood man, but as pure light, he wasn't just trying out a new look because he thought it looked cool. He was showing them that this world, the material world, is an illusion of light. It's part of a structured, interconnected, light-based simulation. And to make this make even more sense, I want to try a quick thought experiment. Imagine a pool of water. Well, the water represents pure light. Now imagine parts of that water freezing into ice. That ice? Well, that's like matter. It's still water. It hasn't become something else. It's just a different state of the same fundamental substance. So just like ice is transformed water, matter is transformed light. Reality isn't what it seems. And to begin to see through the illusion is to realize that we were never separate from the light. We are the light. We've just been slowed down, frozen into form, trapped in a dense illusion. But the truth, we've always been part of the infinite source. Now, before we reveal more mind-blowing things that Jesus said in this banned gospel, I want you to understand how reality could be a structured simulation of light. And to do that, let's think about holograms. Now, a hologram is an image that looks real, that looks like it's three-dimensional, but it's actually just structured light. How? Well, it works by manipulating how light waves interact with each other, and it creates an illusion of depth and form. So at its core, a hologram is possible because light behaves like a wave. So when you look at a hologram, your eyes aren't seeing a physical object. Instead, they're seeing a structure of light, and your brain interprets these patterns as three-dimensional form, even though no actual object exists. Now, here's where it gets weird, because the universe is like a giant hologram. What we see as physical is just a reflection of deeper information. In other words, what if physical reality is like a hologram that you can touch and feel? In this Gnostic gospel, Jesus is saying something very similar almost 2,000 years ago. Now, this was not the message the early church wanted people to hear. Jesus was Neo and Morpheus rolled into one. He was standing there basically holding out red pills, trying to break people out of the Matrix. Now, the disciples were still trying to understand what Jesus was revealing. If the world is an illusion, and if everything they've ever known was false, then where was the real truth? And who was God, really? And how could they possibly find him if the wisest people in history weren't able to? Well, Jesus said, since no one rules over him, he has no name, for whoever has a name is the creation of another. So Philip, probably rethinking his entire existence, is trying to understand and asks, Lord, how then did he, the source, appear to the perfect ones? In other words, if no one has ever seen God, if he has no physical form, if he can't even be named, then how can anyone know him? And by the way, that's why calling this source of reality he is already wrong. But since the text uses it, we'll roll with it for now. But in reality, the true God, the source of divine light, is beyond gender, beyond form, beyond anything we can imagine. So Philip had a good question, and Jesus has a great answer. Before anything is visible, the majesty and the authority are in him, since he embraces the whole of the totalities while nothing embraces him. Everything, the entire universe, every star, every soul, every hidden reality, everything exists within this infinite source, and he exists within us. In other words, the source is in everything. So to begin to understand the invisible realm, the hidden realm, it's about beginning to realize that it's in everything visible, everything out there and inside of you. And then Jesus drops a revelation that science is just now catching up to. For he is all mind, and he is thought, and considering, and reflecting, and rationality, and power. They are equal powers. They are the sources of the totalities. Okay, let's break that down. The universe, it's not made of matter, it's not physical, it's thought. It's pure mind. Now wait, hold up. Didn't we just say reality is light? Now we're saying it's mind? So which is it? Both. Here's the crazy part. Light isn't like anything else in the universe. It moves at the absolute speed limit of reality. Nothing can go faster. And here's where it gets weirder. Photons, particles of light, have no mass. And if we imagine reality from the perspective of a photon, it wouldn't experience space. It wouldn't experience time. In other words, light isn't physical. Light isn't matter. Light is mind. And the true God, he's not a king who rules over others. It's pure mind, pure light. Everything we experience is thought made manifest, light slowed down. Thought and light are actually the same thing. This is a reality of thought, a reality of light, not of matter. Sound crazy? Well, guess what? This aligns perfectly with what some of the greatest minds in physics have discovered. So check this out. This isn't just some mystical woo-woo bullshit. This idea that reality is not made of matter but mind has been sitting right under science's nose for over 100 years. And some of the greatest pioneers of quantum mechanics were basically one step away from quoting the Sophia of Jesus Christ themselves. Meet Max Planck, the physicist who literally founded quantum mechanics. He was expecting to unlock the secrets of matter, but instead, he found out matter doesn't actually exist. His words, not mine. As a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about the atoms this much. There is no matter as such. This is the guy who spent his whole life studying atoms, and he's standing there like, hey, so it turns out everything we think is solid isn't. And it gets even wilder. He said, all matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particles of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter. Now, doesn't that sound a little familiar? Planck was saying that matter as we think of it doesn't exist. Everything we call physical is a pattern held together by mind. Then we have Heisenberg. Now, not Walter White from Breaking Bad, but the Heisenberg, the one that they named the character after. Werner Heisenberg was a pioneer in quantum mechanics, the one that they named the Heisenberg uncertainty principle after. Basically, he's a big deal. And guess what? He said the same thing as Planck. The smallest units of matter are not physical objects in the ordinary sense. They are forms, ideas, which can be expressed unambiguously only in mathematical language. Atoms are not things. That's right. Atoms are not things. What we call matter isn't actually stuff like how we think of it. It's information, a mathematical structure, a thought form given shape. And let's not forget about Erwin Schrödinger, the physicist famous for the Schrödinger's cat thought experiment, and he developed the wave equation that's the beating heart of quantum mechanics. He straight up said, we do not belong to this material world that science constructs for us. We are not in it. We are outside. We are only spectators. The reason why we believe that we are in it, that we belong to the picture, is that our bodies are in the picture. Schrödinger is saying that our consciousness is not part of the physical universe. We think we're inside this reality, but really we're just observers. And if that's true, then who or what are we really? Well, if you thought that was as deep as it gets, think again, because Max Planck, again, the literal founder of quantum mechanics, flat out said, I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. Everything we talk about, everything that we regard as existing, postulates consciousness. In other words, physical reality doesn't create mind, mind creates physical reality. And Schrödinger, he backed him up and said, consciousness cannot be accounted for in physical terms, for consciousness is absolutely fundamental. It cannot be accounted for in terms of anything else. So let's get this straight, because this is just crazy. The literal founders of quantum physics, not some new age gurus, not a group of monks meditating on a mountaintop somewhere, but the guys who built the science we use today, said matter isn't real, mind is the foundation of reality, we exist outside of the physical universe, and yet mainstream science today still tries to sell us the idea that reality is just dead matter, mindless forces, and chemical reactions. It's absolute bullshit that we aren't taught about this, and scientists should honestly be ashamed of themselves for not making this information more widely known. So why isn't this common knowledge? Max Planck himself gave us the answer. He said, a new scientific truth does not triumph by convincing its opponents and making them see the light, but rather because its opponents die, and a new generation grows up that is familiar with it. In other words, science doesn't change because people suddenly realize they were wrong. It changes because an old generation clings to outdated beliefs until they're dead, and the new generation just assumes the truth was obvious all along. For almost 2,000 years, Gnostic teachings have said that reality isn't made of matter, it's made of mind and light. Jesus was basically giving a lesson in quantum mechanics thousands of years ago, but his words were erased because a world that understands this truth is a world that can't be controlled. And remember, what's the first rule for escaping the simulation? Liking and subscribing. Right now. The second rule, keep watching. And if you want the cheat codes to existence, check out my books and downloads on inner transformation. Links are in the description. Okay, but Thomas was still confused, and he spoke up next and said, "Lord Savior, why did these come to be? And why were these revealed? In other words, why does anything exist at all? If the true God, the infinite source, is pure mind, pure thought, pure light, well then why would anything separate from it? Why is there a world? Why is there an illusion? Why are we here?" And Jesus answered, "I came from the infinite that I might tell you all things. Because of his mercy and his love, he wished to bring forth fruit by himself, that he might not enjoy his goodness alone." Jesus is saying something huge here. The source, the true God, was alone. Now I want you to imagine this, seriously, for a minute. Imagine that you are the infinite light, the only thing in existence. There is nothing else, no stars, no time, no space, no one else, no other thoughts, just your own. Wouldn't you be pretty damn lonely? If you're truly infinite, everything eternal and complete, then what's the only thing that you can possibly do? Create. Because what's the point of infinite love without someone to share it with? But hold on, think about this. What can you create from if you're all that exists? The answer is simple, yourself. And this is the greatest secret of all time. If you truly understand this, everything will change. The first light, the first emanations, the first divine minds, all of it was the source knowing itself in endless ways. It was experiencing itself in infinite forms. And guess what? That includes us, which means we are all the source understanding itself through itself. But then something happened. Even though everything originated from the infinite source, not everything remembers where it came from. And that's how the illusion began. See, existence, it's like a dream. When you're inside it, you believe it's real. You forget that you're the dreamer. The dream is unfolding from your own mind. But Jesus, he was trying to wake us up. Jesus is saying that existence is like a dream formed by infinite light, and we are that light. We are all the dreamers trapped inside a collective dream, a long, stable dream, a dream that's so deep, so convincing that we forgot we were the ones creating it. But here's the secret. We can wake up. And that's why Jesus says, "Whoever has ears to hear about the infinities, let him hear. I have addressed those who are awake." See, not everyone gets it. Not everyone is ready. Now, this wasn't because Jesus was some mystical gatekeeper of forbidden knowledge like he was trying to hide it, but because some people just aren't at the level of consciousness where they're able to understand it. Think of it like this. Have you ever had a lucid dream where you suddenly realize that you were dreaming? And have you ever tried to tell the other dream characters that it's a dream? They usually look at you like you're crazy, or they start behaving strangely, almost as if the dream itself doesn't want to be exposed. Well, guess what? That's exactly like how most people act when you try to reveal what existence really is. They resist, they reject it, they cling to the illusion because it feels safer than the unknown. Jesus was like a dreamer in the collective dream who woke up, and he was trying to tell the others. But most people, they aren't ready to wake up. But for those who feel it deep inside, for those who have started to question everything, for those who sense that reality isn't what it seems, this message is for you. Are you starting to remember? Are things starting to click? Like puzzle pieces falling into place, like a lost memory in the back of your mind that you can't quite grasp, something you've always known but forgotten. Jesus said, "Everything that came from the perishable will perish, since it came from the perishable. But whatever came from imperishableness does not perish, but becomes imperishable." This means everything born inside the illusion, the material world, the world of form, will ultimately die. But what about what's born from the true source of infinite light? It can't die. It's eternal. And that's what you really are. Now, your body, that can certainly die, which is why it's important to take care of yourself. But ultimately, we're not our bodies. We aren't the illusion. We are the eternal light. So now Mary Magdalene asks a question. "Lord, then how will we know that?" She's basically saying, hey, if the world is a lie, how can we ever recognize the truth? And Jesus replies, "The very emanation of thought will reveal to you how faith in those things that are not visible was found in those that are visible." Jesus is saying that to see the truth, one has to look beyond the visible, because the real world is not the one you can touch. Jesus is saying that the invisible is the true foundation of the visible. Light, mind, and thought ourselves are more real than the physical universe. The physical is like a shadow, a projection of something deeper. Just like how a beam of light can create the projection of a hologram. Now you're probably wondering, okay, if the source, the infinite light, is the only thing that exists, then how does it actually create? How does something that is one give rise to many? The answer lies in reflection. Jesus said, seeing himself within himself in a mirror, he appeared resembling himself, but his likeness appeared as divine self-father. Okay, so imagine that you're standing in a hall of mirrors. Each reflection seems like it's separate, but they're actually all copies of the same original source, you. Each one is a perfect duplication, but none of them diminish the original you. Well, this is how light creates. It reflects itself endlessly, but remains whole. This is why Jesus calls it the self-father, because it's its own source, its own parent, its own origin. And here's where it gets even crazier. Why? Because this is just like how a hologram works. See, a hologram isn't like a normal picture. If you cut a picture in half, you get two halves of the picture. Each one is incomplete. But guess what? If you cut a hologram in half, something incredible happens. Each half still contains the entire image. Crazy, right? This is because a hologram records the interference pattern of light waves instead of a direct image. No matter how many times you divide a hologram, no matter how many times you cut it into pieces, each piece continues to hold the whole within it. So think about this. This is how we all seem to be separate pieces, but are all God and contained infinity within. This is exactly how the infinite light creates. Each emanation is a reflection of the whole. Each one contains the essence of the source. This is why the Father is also called the Son. And remember, you don't have to use gendered language here. You could say this is why the parent is also the child. Each soul, each being, each spark of consciousness, it's all the same light, just reflected in countless ways. In other words, you're a holographic God. Literally, you are a reflection of the source, containing the whole within you. You just have to remember. And this remembering, it's like putting pieces of a puzzle together until it all starts to click. Do you feel them falling into place right now? Do you have the ears to hear, the eyes to see? Jesus then reveals something so massive it could crack the illusion wide open. First, he describes how the source multiplied itself and that we all originate from that multiplication. Afterward was revealed a whole multitude of confronting self-begotten ones, equal in age and power, being in glory and without number, from the one in whom you yourselves have appeared. Okay, let's break that down. The source, the infinite light, just didn't create a single being, it multiplied itself, and from that multiplication came countless divine emanations. And here's the part that should send chills down your spine. Jesus turns to his disciples and basically says, you are from them, which means you're not just some random human trying to make sense of a chaotic world. You are a fragment of the infinite light, a being of divine origin trapped in a dream trying to wake up. Now, Matthew was trying to figure all this out, and he asks, Lord, Savior, how was man revealed? So he's basically saying, what is humanity? Why do we exist? And why do we feel like we don't belong in this world? And Jesus gives the most mystical, mind-blowing answer imaginable. I want you to know that he who appeared before the universe in infinity decided to have his likeness become a great power. Immediately, the principle of that light appeared as immortal, androgynous man. All right, did you catch that? Before the physical universe was ever made, before matter, time, or space, the true source manifested as an immortal androgynous human. Not male, not female, not limited by flesh, but a being of pure, undivided light. This changes everything because it means humanity's original form is not material. We are beings of light, unified, whole, and immortal. Jesus said that through that immortal androgynous man, humanity might attain their salvation and awaken from forgetfulness through the interpreter who was sent, who is with you until the end of the poverty of the robbers. Jesus is saying, hey, you're part of the original light, but you've been cast into forgetfulness. And now Jesus, the interpreter, is here to wake you up. But hold on, who are the robbers? Well, just like there are beings of light, Jesus is going to reveal that they're also beings of shadow that have created a simulated illusion, blinding you to what you really are. But first, there's another piece to this that you need to know, because before we can reveal how darkness came to be, we need to know more about how the light of reality is structured. Because if you don't know how the light works, well, you'll never know how the shadow twists it. Jesus reveals that the immortal man wasn't alone, and his consort is the great Sophia, who from the first was destined in him for union by self-begotten Father. Hey, it's Sophia, finally! You know, the Sophia whose name is literally in the title of this book. She's the great wisdom, the other half of the cosmic being of light. This means that the immortal human of light wasn't just a singular entity, it was an androgynous being with both a male and female aspect united. So that's right, this book was talking about a non-binary being almost 2,000 years ago. So the immortal man and Sophia reflected into each other like a mirror, because remember, that's how light creates, and revealed another androgynous being, Christ. Jesus says, immortal man reflected with great Sophia, his consort, and revealed his first begotten androgynous son. Now, first begotten is called Christ. This means that Christ isn't just a man. This being was both male and female, from the original light, the divine presence that existed before the world was ever formed. Jesus said, I came from self-begotten and first infinite light, that I might reveal everything to you. Jesus wasn't here to teach religion. He was here to wake up those who had forgotten. But this raised more questions for the disciples. If this world is an illusion, and if beyond it exists the realm of light, well, how vast is creation? How many realms, dimensions, and realities actually exist? And so Thomas asked, Lord, Savior, how many are the eons of those who surpass the heavens? So he wasn't talking about stars or planets or galaxies here. He was asking about the hidden architecture of reality itself, the source code, the programming. So Jesus reveals that reality itself functions like a massive layered simulation, that everything, light, thought, even divine beings, are structured like a cascading program, each level generating the next. Again, think about how crazy this is coming from a book that's almost 2,000 years old. Jesus said, now immortal man revealed eons and powers and kingdoms and gave authority to all who appear in him. So imagine a master program, a source code from which all other codes originate. In this case, that's immortal man, divine consciousness. That's like the source code. Like an advanced AI system generating subprograms, this immortal man of light unfolds itself step by step, creating entire levels of reality, each one more detailed than the last. Jesus said, with his thought, the powers very soon appeared who were called gods. Now, these aren't gods in the way people usually think, but almost like advanced subroutines of the source code that handle specific functions of reality. For example, one god might govern time, another might oversee form, another could encode understanding, thought, or perception. Each god is just a different function of the original intelligence. In other words, if the source code is like the operating system on your phone, gods would be like the different apps. Jesus said, and the gods from their wisdom revealed lords, and the lords of the lords from their thinkings revealed lords. So as the simulation is getting more complex here, the gods create lords, subroutines that govern even smaller details of existence. So if gods are like the apps, then lords would be like specific functions of those different apps. Jesus said, and the lords from their power revealed archangels, and the archangels from their words revealed angels. So archangels govern angels. And angels, they're like interface programs. In other words, they help bridge the gap between the higher levels of reality and the lower realms. They're messengers, meaning they transmit information between different levels of existence and follow pre-programmed commands given by the archangels. Jesus said, from them semblances appeared, with structure and form and name for all the eons and their worlds. Now at this level, form begins, but it's not yet material form, but the templates for reality, like the blueprints that will eventually become the lower worlds. But here's where something goes wrong. A distortion, a virus is about to enter the system. Shadow is about to be born. So remember that when the immortal man and the great Sophia reflected into each other, they emanated Christ, the revealer. But here's something to think about. What if Sophia were to act alone? Jesus tells his disciples, I want you to know that Sophia, the mother of the universe, and the consort desired by herself to bring these to existence without her male consort. So when Sophia acted alone, without balance, she created something else entirely, a being of shadow. See, whereas Christ is a being of light emanating from balance and is the revealer of truth, this was a being of shadow created from imbalance, a being that did not reveal the truth, but rather concealed it. This being was known as Yaldabaoth, the false god, the blind creator, the architect of illusion. So where Christ reveals, Yaldabaoth hides. Where Christ brings knowledge, Yaldabaoth spreads ignorance. Where Christ awakens, Yaldabaoth enslaves through forgetfulness. And so the world split into a dualism, one reality built on truth and the other built on illusion, like the difference between the pure programming code and the game reality it generates. Yaldabaoth believed himself to be the one true God, and according to the Gnostics, this being of shadow and lies is none other than the God of the Bible. See, this being looked around and saw only himself because he was born in ignorance, in darkness. He created dark entities of shadow known as archons and formed a world, a prison of matter, and he trapped divine sparks from the light within his creation and declared himself their ruler. He became the god of control, the god of law, the god of punishment and fear, and humanity, trapped within this holographic illusion, forgot their true origins. Now we have two forces at play in existence. The revealer, Christ, the light that exposes the illusion, awakens souls, and leads them back to the infinite through knowledge, and then the concealer, Yaldabaoth, the shadow that hides the truth, keeps souls asleep, and traps them in false reality. So this is actually extremely similar to the movie The Matrix. The material world is the simulation, the Matrix. Yaldabaoth is the architect, the false god who built the Matrix and convinced everyone that it was real and rules over it like a tyrant. The archons? They're like the agents, designed to keep us asleep, blind, and obedient. And Christ is like Neo, here to crash the system, not through saving people from sin, but by waking everyone up. And once again, if you want me to do a whole video on the Matrix and how Gnosticism relates, let me know in the comments. Now, Mary was starting to understand, and she asked a question that you probably have on your mind too. Hey, this is all well and good, but what the hell do we do about it? She said, Holy Lord, where did your disciples come from? And where are they going? And what should they do here? So Mary wanted to know the purpose of human existence. If they were trapped in a false world, first, how did they get here? And more importantly, how could they escape? When Yaldabaoth created this world of matter and flesh, fragments of light became trapped in it. And so the first humans in physical bodies were born, but they were trapped and their divine origin was erased from their memories. They became slaves to a false world, ruled over by the blind God. This is why people feel lost and disconnected, like something's missing, because they're not from here. They are exiles from the world of light. We're gods trapped in matter. Jesus said, and you were sent by the Son, who was sent that you might receive light and remove yourselves from the forgetfulness of the archons. In other words, when you receive the light of knowledge, the ignorance will lift. You'll see through the illusion and remember what you really are. Jesus then goes on to describe how he's going to spread knowledge to crash the system. He said, I have broken the gates of the pitiless ones in their presence. I have humiliated their malicious intent, and they all have been shamed. Through knowledge, the false rulers, the blind creators, the archons, they were exposed and their lives were collapsing. Their kingdom of control and illusion was cracking. And now those who were ready to wake up would return to the infinite. Jesus said, I have given you authority over all things as sons of light, that you might tread upon their power with your feet. Jesus wasn't saying to follow him as a master or to worship him as a god or to obey him like some kind of king. He was saying the opposite. He was telling them that they too were divine, that they were sons of light, that they had power over all things. The archons who enslaved souls for thousands of years, they were nothing. Their power was broken, and those who understood the truth would walk free. Now, there's something we have to understand here. These are metaphors, allegories. It's a language designed to point us toward something deeper. We don't even know if Jesus actually existed. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but that doesn't change the fact that these words, whoever said them, are incredibly close to describing reality in ways that modern science is only just beginning to catch up with. And it goes deeper. These words don't just describe reality, they describe us, our minds. See, all these beings, the gods, the lords, the archangels, the emanations, these aren't cosmic figures floating around somewhere in some distant spiritual realm. They represent programs within us. So reality is like a structured simulation, but the entire structure exists inside you. Remember that in a hologram, the information of the entire structure is in every part? So the same source code that created the universe is embedded within your mind. And just like in any system, there are different functions operating within you, shaping your perception, your awareness, your ability to wake up. So what do these divine figures actually mean? See, Jesus wasn't just some figure or some external savior figure you're meant to worship. What Jesus represents is the revealer within you, the force inside of you that drives you to search for truth. It's that nagging feeling that reality isn't what it seems. It's the urge to question, to dig deeper, to wake up. It's that voice inside of you that knows something isn't right, that refuses to accept the illusion. It's your higher self, shaking you, shouting, trying to get you to remember. And what about Sophia? Well, she's not just some divine mother figure, she's wisdom itself. In other words, Sophia, she's truth within you, waiting to be discovered. The more you seek, the more you uncover Sophia. She's the hidden knowledge that you need to reclaim. And then we have the immortal man, Sophia's consort. This being represents truth that's fully understood and integrated. It's what happens when Sophia, or wisdom, isn't just something you know, but something you actualize. It's awakening to an actual higher level of consciousness. So, first, you question. That's the Christ function, the revealer. Then you discover what's inside, the Sophia function, the wisdom within. Then you reach a higher level of consciousness, the immortal human, the wisdom within integrated into higher consciousness. This is the process of awakening. It's about understanding how to hack and access your own code. It's not about following a religion. It's about following the codes written in your soul. The truth is inside you. The question is, are you going to become the programmer of your own mind, or are you going to let someone else write your code for you? The archons, these so-called rulers, they aren't literal beings sitting on cosmic thrones. They're distractions, fears, ignorance, the limiting programs. Because since the moment you were born, your mind's been programmed. Parents, teachers, religious leaders, media, they're all feeding you lines of code, shaping your perception of reality, telling you who you are, what to believe, what's possible, what isn't, installing limits, restrictions, walls. But the truth is that you were meant to reclaim your source code, to rewrite the illusion, and to break the fake programs and install truth. So ask yourself this: are you ready to wake up and take control, or are you gonna keep running a program written by someone else? But if you want to know just how far Jesus went to help others break out of the illusion, watch my video on the secret magic of Jesus Christ. It'll blow your mind.